Imagine the comforting aroma of fresh vegetables sizzling in a school cafeteria, sourced from a farm just miles away. Now, imagine that meal vanishing, replaced with processed, lower-quality alternatives due to budget cuts. That's the reality facing schools, food banks, and local farmers after the USDA's controversial decision to eliminate over $1 billion in funding for local food purchasing programs. Schools and food banks had come to rely on these programs to ensure access to nutritious, locally sourced food. The cuts don't just threaten meals. They shake the foundation of local farming and the livelihoods of thousands of farmers who depended on these funds as a secure revenue stream. Critics argue that these cuts represent more than a budgetary decision. They signal a shift away from investing in sustainable food systems and community resilience. How did this happen? What does it mean for the future of food security and local economies? Let's break it down. Background: the programs that made local food accessible. For years, two key USDA initiatives, the Local Food for Schools Cooperative Agreement Program, LFS, and the Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement Program, LFPA, acted as lifelines for farmers and food providers. The Local Food for Schools program, LFS, was designed to help school districts purchase fresh, locally grown food for student meals. It wasn't just about nutrition, it was about strengthening local economies, reducing reliance on imported goods, and teaching children the value of farm-to-table eating. The Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, LFPA, played a critical role in food banks, supplying them with resources to procure food from nearby farmers. Food banks, in turn, distributed these locally sourced products to families facing food insecurity. Together, these programs fostered a symbiotic relationship between schools, food banks, and farmers, ensuring better food quality while supporting American agriculture. Now, that delicate balance is at risk. The decision to cut funding. Why the USDA pulled the plug? The USDA justified the move by stating that these programs were initiated under pandemic-era executive authority and no longer aligned with its long-term goals. A spokesperson for the agency remarked that they were temporary measures rather than permanent policies. However, opponents argue that the benefits of these programs extended far beyond pandemic relief. They contend that eliminating funding disregards ongoing food insecurity challenges and the economic hardships that many farmers still face. The Trump administration has emphasized cost-cutting measures and streamlining federal expenditures. However, critics question whether reducing funding for local food programs was the right target, especially considering the widespread impact on schools, food banks, and rural economies. The impact on schools. A crisis in school nutrition? For millions of children, school meals serve as their primary source of nutrition. The removal of funding means fewer fresh fruits and vegetables, fewer locally sourced meals, and potentially more processed, lower-quality alternatives. How schools will be affected. Struggling school districts may be forced to rely on cheaper, mass-produced food instead of local produce. Meal programs aimed at low-income students could experience shortages or even discontinuation. Nutritionists fear that childhood health and obesity rates may worsen due to reliance on lower-quality food options. The School Nutrition Association has publicly condemned the funding cut, warning that this decision will disproportionately harm students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. The impact on food banks. Increased food insecurity. Food banks were among the biggest beneficiaries of the LFPA program, using federal grants to purchase fresh food from local sources. Without this funding, food banks will have to rely more on donated, non-perishable food items, which could result in less nutritional diversity for families in need. Consequences for food banks. Reduced ability to provide balanced meals to low-income families. increased dependence on processed or canned foods rather than fresh produce, financial strain as organizations scramble to find alternative funding sources. A representative from a major food bank described the situation as devastating, stating that they had already planned their food purchases for the year, only to be left scrambling after the USDA's announcement. The impact on local farmers. A threat to livelihoods. For small and mid-sized farms, losing reliable buyers like schools and food banks is a significant economic hit. These farmers now face the challenge of finding new markets, often competing with industrial-scale agriculture for retail contracts. How farmers are affected. Many farmers relied on USDA-supported contracts as a guaranteed source of income. Without schools and food banks as buyers, farms may struggle to stay afloat financially. Rural economies could experience downturns due to reduced agricultural revenue. One farmer in Ohio expressed frustration, saying, "We built our farm around supplying local schools. Now, we have nowhere to sell." Political and public reactions. Backlash against the USDA's decision. The decision has faced intense criticism from various sectors, including governors, advocacy groups, and food organizations. Public and political response. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey voiced strong opposition, noting that her state alone is losing $12 million in planned funding. Lawmakers across party lines have questioned whether the USDA is prioritizing cost-cutting over public welfare. Grassroots movements and local activists are rallying to push Congress to reverse the cuts. The fight isn't over. Many advocacy groups are urging the USDA to reconsider or find alternative funding solutions. Possible solutions. What can be done? With USDA funding gone, communities are exploring alternative ways to support local food purchases. Potential solutions. State-level initiatives. Some state governments may step in to fund local food programs independently. Private sector investment. Companies and nonprofit organizations might increase their support for farm-to-school programs. Legislative advocacy. Pressure on Congress to reinstate funding could lead to policy revisions. While the road ahead remains uncertain, many believe that a collaborative effort between policymakers, schools, and farmers is necessary to prevent further damage. Conclusion. The future of local food systems in the U.S. The USDA's funding cuts represent more than a budgetary shift. They signal a transformation in the nation's approach to food security and agricultural sustainability. If local food initiatives continue to lose federal backing, the ripple effects could reshape how millions of Americans access healthy meals. The question remains, will future administrations revive these programs, or will local food purchasing become a thing of the past? For now, the battle for food security continues, as advocates, farmers, and families push to preserve the progress that once seemed secure.